Hi, it's Knuckle. Today let's read a short, simple, beautiful poem by Naomi Shihab Nye that will appeal even to those who aren't normally enthused by poetry. We'll read through the whole poem first before diving deeper and annotating. I first read this poem in a book called Lost and Found by Janine Roth, who lost most of her savings in the Bernie Madoff scheme. Shortly after learning that most of her savings had vanished, she searched for this poem she had always known and loved. It was more important to her now than ever before. Kindness by Naomi Shihab Nye. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you've been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere like a shadow or a friend. Before you know what kindness really is. So we've already got the sense that what's being spoken about here has perhaps an additional layer of gravity to it than our quotidian understandings and uses of the word kindness. It begins with, before you know. So it's as if someone more experienced is speaking to us and telling us that to understand kindness requires experience. You must lose things. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. So why you must lose things? Why such a sort of seemingly prosaic formation, especially in poetry? But even in academic writing, we were taught in school to avoid using the word things. I could imagine an English teacher like crossing this out, right? And replacing it with, you must experience loss or something like that. Right. So why not you must experience loss and why you must lose things? Well, when you say experience loss, it's becomes something a bit more abstract and it sounds perhaps a bit more dramatic. Lose things is very mundane, but it also adds some realness and some tangibility to whatever it is that we're losing. The speaker is saying that you actually have to lose something, not just experience loss in a philosophical sense, but actually have lost something real. Something that you could have held in your hand or almost have held in your hand. It doesn't necessarily have to be material in the physical sense. It could even be losing your sense of who you are or the life you thought you would have. Those are still things. And you might not be able to literally hold those in your hand, but they're not totally elusive either. They still have weight, shape, texture inside of you. They're real enough to be lost. So before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things, feel the future dissolve in a moment, like salt in a weakened broth. So again, I'm imagining salt here in someone's hand, slipping out of someone's grip and disappearing into water. It's the image of something solid, structured, in this case the future, melting into nothing. It reminds me of TikTok videos where cotton candy disintegrates into water, something that seems so full and colorful, just vanishing. And here especially, it's the future dissolving in a moment. So this is where what I was saying about maybe your plans for the future or the life you thought you might have disappears in front of you, and that's the loss. Or maybe you've lost something else, which now causes your certainty or your sense of what the future will look like to dissolve. Whether literally tangible or not, it was something with shape, form, and color that could have been held or almost held and is now gone. what you held in your hand, what you counted carefully and saved, all this must go so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. I love what you counted, what you carefully counted and saved. So counting itself is almost a reminder to oneself of ownership. Counting one's blessings, it's a reminder to yourself of what you have, of what's yours. And all of this must go now so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. Before we were speaking about the future dissolving, but now we're seeing the past dissolving too. All that you had counted and carefully saved, the past. So, how you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. So we spoke about the past and future dissolving in front of us, everything we counted and everything that we're counting on happening next. And now we're stuck in some kind of space of eternity or timelessness. We're on this bus that rides and never stops forever. Kindness, it seems, is almost a constant, eternal state of being. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Okay, so this has one of my favorite literary devices in it, which are enjambments. So you've got an enjambment over here with someone. Even this you over here is an enjambment. The plans over here is kind of an enjambment as well. So I learned about enjambments in my senior year English class in high school, and I noticed them everywhere ever since. My favorite are in Macbeth's Tomorrow's Speech. But an enjambment is basically a place where the line in the poem ends, but not the full sentence or the full thought. And it can add a layer of suspense, or it can create an interesting situation where the thought is a complete thought in and of itself, but then you've got a next line that adds an additional layer of complexity and meaning. And that's what you've got here, right? So you're seeing the dead Indian on the side of the road, and you're realizing how this could be you. And it could end there, right? That in and of itself is kindness, right? That's kind of the essence of the whole poem, right? To see a dead Indian on the side of the road and realize how this could be you. But then there's more, how he too was someone. And that's really beautiful too, how he too was someone, just like you are someone. But it doesn't end there. Then it continues, who journeyed through the night with plans. So we keep this separate because he too was someone. And that's enough. You don't need any more, actually. He too was someone. But then you do get a little bit more after that, who journeyed through the night with plans. So again, you've got that sense, as I mentioned before, of losing what could have been yours, what your plans were and everything. And then you've got an additional enjambment too here, because it ends with, and the simple breath that kept him alive. So there's almost an additional layer, and a deeper, more fundamental and biological layer of what it means to be human, the simple breath that keeps you alive. It's sort of like if you've ever read Paul Kalani's book, When Breath Becomes Air, that's what I'm kind of getting reminded of here. Just like the salt dissolves into the water, the breath turns into air. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. So why is kindness the deepest thing inside? The deepest thing inside is what's left when you've taken everything else away. And as this poem shows us, you need to experience loss to know kindness. Kindness and sorrow aren't opposites, they're companions. They live at that same level of depth, maybe even in the same place. You must wake up with sorrow, you must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. This is really interesting, the way we're talking about kindness and sorrow together, especially because there's some differences in the way we treat these nouns grammatically. Both are abstract nouns, which might make them sort of uncountable, though here we are talking about multiple sorrows. But it would be harder to imagine the speaker talking about multiple kindnesses. We usually talk about like my sorrow or your sorrow. It feels individual and intimate. Kindness, on the other hand, is treated more impersonally. It's a virtue, a value that we live up to. In my head, when I hear sorrow, I imagine, an individual bent over and suffering. But kindness is different. I think of an elementary school bulletin board talking about that virtue of kindness which every child should aspire to embody. But here, your private sorrow is leading you to that fabric of shared human sorrow. You catch the thread, and then suddenly you're holding the whole cloth. And that's what kindness is. It's not just a feeling, it's a recognition, a connection, and a knowing. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. Wow, I love the imagery of kindness tying your shoes, because it's such a physical action, tying one's shoes. And once again, it's a mundane activity. But kindness permeates everything you do, even the most mundane. Instead of walking through your life searching, you realize that kindness is what you've been looking for all along. And it's everywhere and goes with you everywhere, both as a shadow and as a friend. I love this last line because it once again brings us to a theme that recurs throughout the poem. Kindness and loss go hand in hand. Kindness and sorrow go hand in hand. It's a shadow and it's also a friend. It's a reminder of what you've lost or could lose, but that's also what connects you to mankind. Your personal loss or potential for experiencing loss is what makes you human and connects you to the collective. I also love this line, kindness that ties you to your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Gaze has that sense of awe in it, and bread is of course a symbol of abundance. Kindness involves a sense of awe for life and gratitude, not necessarily for what you have, because what you have can be lost, as this poem shows us. Here we're not talking about gratitude for your bread, but gazing at bread itself with awe, gazing with awe at the abundance and richness of life in and around you. It comes actually from a loss of ownership. So I really, really loved this poem, and I hope you enjoyed it too, and let me know what you think.